Hello, it's the middle of November. The garden is starting to look like it's definitely winding down for this growing season, but there are still masses and masses that I can harvest from the garden to eat during the winter. And so in today's video we're going to have a look at the food that's still going to be available for me to use in the kitchen right through the coldest months. I'm Zorab and this is Byther Farm. Some of the harvests are going to come from annual vegetables, ones that I've sown within the last year to harvest during this period. And others are perennial vegetables, ones that I've planted and I know I'll be able to harvest from year to year to year. For some plants, those harvests will increase each year, and for others, well, they may reduce over time. So this plant in front of me here, with the blackened leaves, and its sister plant over in the corner over there, are Jerusalem artichokes. Now, these are tubers that grow underground. They're knobbly, they have this lovely warm nutty mild taste to them. Now, they are famous for giving you wind because they're hard to digest. That doesn't detract from their lovely taste or just how easy they are to grow in your garden. So all you need to do is plant a tuber or two, they will grow away, and you have a choice of lifting some as you need them. They don't store well, so you need to leave them in the ground until you're ready to use them. So you can either lift and eat them, or you can leave them in the ground and let them spread. And that's certainly what I did for this small clump here. And this year I've managed to give several friends some tubers for them to have them in their garden. This is a variety called Dwarf. That's Jerusalem artichoke dwarf. There is one called Dwarf, I think it's called Sunray, which comes to about 5 feet. And then the one that people know most of all goes up to 8 to 10 feet high, which in a very windy environment like this is not the best plant to have. So I'm really keen to have this, this lower growing version. So the tubers are easily accessible. They come away easily, and these ones are quite purpley red in colour, quite knobbly, and I need to find my basket to add them into. And this plant is Yacon or Yacon. It's another tuber. It's pale in colour. It's very crispy, crunchy. It kind of has the texture of water chestnuts, but it has a slightly, maybe an apple-y taste. Anyway, it's a slightly sweet tuber. Not ready to harvest yet, to wait until all the leaves have blackened. And with this plant, I intend to save some of the tubers to use again and grow next year. And some of them, I'm going to make some Yacon wine. And just in front here is an Asturian tree cabbage. It's still a very small one. It has been absolutely clobbered by the slugs and snails this year, but I'll be able to carry on harvesting from that. This is actually one of my favourite cabbages. It's a short-lived perennial. I've been growing Asturian tree cabbages for about 6 years. In our last house I had a whole row of them, which was absolutely beautiful. To give you an idea of the size of the leaf, they are amazing. So they don't grow a head of cabbage, they grow leaves all round, and the plant can get quite tall. I think our one got about this height before. The way to ensure that they carry on growing in your garden is to remove any flower shoots as they appear, and then your Asturian tree cabbage should see you through 2, 3 and possibly even 4 years. Dotted in various different beds throughout the garden are some beetroot. Now, these probably won't stay in the ground throughout the winter, because what we have discovered in this garden is that the local vole population, once it gets really cold, love these beetroots, and they come along and eat the beets and leave the leaves behind, so we end up with no harvest at all. So I will probably lift most of them. Look at these. These are going to be lovely for lunch. I will probably lift most of them before the weather gets too much colder. Even if you find beets with very small roots, you can still use the leaves as a vegetable. Absolutely great in a stir fry or used as an alternative to spinach. And further along the bed from the yacon and the beetroot is some celeriac. Now this is about fist size at the moment, which is plenty just for the two of us in one meal. And of course you can also use the leaves and chop them to add flavour to stocks and soups, and they give it that lovely celeriac flavouring. In these two beds, well, there's lots of food. This is a purple sprouting broccoli. I'm not expecting that to produce any florets until after Christmas, but they're looking pretty good, pretty healthy, so I'm happy with those. There is a Brussels sprout there. That's a purple variety. I tried it this year for the first time. Not sure I'm very keen on it. Seems to have also suffered with a lot of rain, a lack of light, being eaten by slugs several times. So they're not doing great, but there will be a few. And then in this bed over here, well, this at the moment is a mustard called Oriental Ruby Streaks. I love this, but it is very warm. Once the leaves get bigger, it's very fiery. Once the frost comes and these die back, what will be left in this bed are some leeks. So they're still pretty small at the moment, but I can harvest them as baby leeks. And there are also a couple of cabbages in there, which I'm not really expecting to be ready to eat until almost into the hungry gap next year. In this netted brassica bed, there are some more purple sprouting broccoli. I had sowed some kohlrabi in here. Slugs got to those, but there are a couple of red cabbage. I'm going to be harvesting those this week and cooking them all en masse with lots of red wine and lots of lovely spices to make a kind of mulled wine cabbage, which we really like around the winter festivity times. I'm also going to clear pretty much all of the flowers out of this bed, clear away the weeds, and then I'm going to plant the last of my garlic cloves in here, ready for harvesting next June, July. Over in this bed, there are lots of swede or rutabaga. They are getting, I don't know, they're bigger than my fist now, so they're getting to quite a reasonable size. I don't want them too big. There's only two of us eating them, so I don't really need them the size of a football. Here is some red kale. I'm not a huge fan of it, but if I get really desperate, I will eat it. It's incredibly hardy, so if we have very low temperatures, I will still be able to harvest some of that. And then Cavolo Nero kale, which is probably the only kale that I kind of like the taste of, but I will have it chopped up in other things. I don't like it as a side dish on its own, but hidden amongst other foods, yep, I'll eat that. And these are Welsh onions. They're a perennial onion, so they will die down during the depths of winter, but they come back each year with a larger clump. They're also called bunching onions, and I'll carry on harvesting their leaves to use in cooking for as long as I can. But I do have a whole load of them picked and chopped and frozen, so once these aren't available in the coldest part of the winter, then I can move on to the onions that are frozen. Now normally I would be saying, and here is a bed of parsnips, but this year, for the first time in 40 years, I have failed to grow parsnips. I don't know whether it was too cold or too wet, or the seed wasn't fresh enough, but whatever I did this year, there are no parsnips. So I'm relying more heavily on other root vegetables. And that includes yet more beetroot. This one is chioggia or chioggia, which is when you slice it through, it has concentric rings of pink and white, which is very lovely. And again, the local vole population will be very happy to help themselves to these, so I will be harvesting them. And I cook them and then freeze them. In previous gardens, I would have left these in the ground over winter. Because of our vole population, I'm harvesting these now. And then in nearly every bed there is some sort of herb. So in this bed there's masses of thyme, Over here there is thyme and marjoram, which is very similar to oregano. And I've also just spotted some baby leeks. Now these are almost as thin as blades of grass, but I'm going to harvest those and use them like chives as a garnish. Hopefully that'll be really nice. Here is another covered brassica bed with a couple of purple sprouting broccoli in it. You will get a theme here. I like purple sprouting broccoli. I've put them in at different times, so they're growing to different heights, which means that hopefully they will crop over a really long period. But I've also got things like cabbages and cauliflowers and other Brussels sprouts in here to grow up slowly, and hopefully they will give us a crop at the very end of winter going into spring, and during that hungry gap when there won't be very much else available to harvest. And then also in this bed I have planted some elephant garlic. It's not for harvesting now, it's for harvesting in the middle to late summer next year, but that's why everything is spaced out so much. Firstly, to give the brassicas plenty of space, but also to give the elephant garlic the space that they like to grow. Sometimes I look at a bed and I think it hasn't got very much in it that's edible, and then when I take a closer look I realise it's actually chock-a-block full of food. At the front there is some flat leaf parsley. I'll carry on harvesting that until the heavy frosts really knock that back, and occasionally I'm lucky enough to get that to carry on growing through the winter. Here's some more Cavallonera kale. I actually planted that for the ducks, but in a cold winter, if absolutely necessary, we'll have that. Some more parsley at that end and some curly parsley there. I really like parsley. I like to use it as a herb in meals, but I also really like parsley sauce with cold meats. And then down here is some oca, OCA. It's a little tuber from the Andes, and I mostly grow this as ground cover because I absolutely love the leaves. But it does produce an edible tuber. Let's see if I can find one. Here we go. So this is a really small one still. They come in white and yellow and pinks and quite dark reds, and they've got a slightly lemony taste. And they're very crunchy, but you can boil them, roast them, mash them. You can do all sorts of things. Pretty much anything you do with potato you can do with oca. I'm going to leave mine for the tubers to grow a little bit more. I'll wait until all the leaves have blackened and gone mushy, and then I'll lift the tubers as a harvest. I will actually be planting most of them back in the ground because I like to use it as ground cover to keep the weeds off the bed. But it's a really attractive plant and another addition to the winter harvest. So as well as all of these and those veg, I also have some potatoes in tubs, which I hope to harvest towards Christmas. There are carrots in the veggie pod, and there are also some sweet potatoes growing in the polytunnel, which I'll harvest very soon, and I'll share in a video when I do that. Whether you are a beginner grower or a seasoned gardener, it's always good to be able to work out how much food you might need to grow to feed your family in a year. And so I've made a video, and I'll leave a link in the video description and also on the screen, and if you click on that link it'll take you straight through to that video.